The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa.
Step up your efforts to deal with corruption.
Well, President Ramaphosa will have his work cut out for him this afternoon when he replies to these and other tough questions posed during the SONA debate. Police are expected to take the stand as the Morane Commission resumes this morning. Zimbabweans to bid farewell to opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai.
New Zimbabwe national rugby coach Peter de Villiers, the last African coach to win the Tri-Nations, fires off the serious allegation that Saudi actively blacklisted him for years.
If you are blacklisted, they can't appoint you.
Hello and welcome to Newsroom. A very happy Tuesday to you. I'm Shante Yankees coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. A lot coming up between now and 12 p.m. Your expectations from the President's SONA reply, your views as well as the latest news from the continent and the world over. Of course, Chino Mambo is standing by with all of our sporting highlights. A very good morning. Good to have you back for some people that don't work on Mondays, Kendall.
Yeah, some of us do work on Mondays. It's just not here. But tell you what, it's great to see Peter de Villiers back in the saddle,
definitely.
This time for Zimbabwe. And he's dropping quite a lot of bombshells. And we'll be making sure that we bring you up to speed with everything that Peter de Villiers had to say about SARC.
The top story at 9 o'clock, President Ramaphosa will today reply to the debate on his maiden State of the Nation address. The National Assembly sat for 10 hours yesterday as parliamentarians debated the president's speech.
It was a long sitting for MPs. This debate usually takes place over 2 days. But of course, due to all the political developments unfolding in the country, the debate was set down for 1 day only. This was to accommodate the program of Parliament for this week.
It is our considered view that the President needs to expedite his meeting with the leaders of all spheres of government, managers and premiers, to commit them to the new dawn he referred to on his address.
When it comes to corruption, you came up gun blazing on Friday. But proof of the pudding is in the eating. As the PAC, we wonder if you will be able to deal with corruption properly.
Hope and change must be measured on how the material conditions of the working poor has changed for the better.
Step up your efforts to deal with corruption. Our people want to see that perpetrators of crime who plundered the state coffers are arrested and prosecuted in the relevant foreign courts. Our law enforcement agencies should interact with Interpol and their counterparts in other jurisdictions to ensure that all fugitives with relation to state capture are apprehended and brought to book.
The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa. It's a fact. SARS is failing to collect revenue in a manner in which is expected. A shortfall of 50 billion rands as was announced here. The National Prosecutions Authority is dysfunctional. It works according to who is in political office. They only make arrests now that Jacob Zuma is no more.
We must learn the lessons of how Zuma was able to capture the state, subjugate our parliament, and tame our institutions. One man could never wreak such devastation on his own. So while you set to work, Mr. President, on fixing the executive, we as parliament must introspect very honestly and very carefully about how we fix our parliament and address its failings over the last 8 years to effect oversight.
I was intrigued today to note how antiseptic the response to your call for deep debate has been. And I envy you not in trying to develop a substantial response to some of what has been said.
Throughout the debates, President Ramaphosa was seen taking notes and listening intently. He will respond to political parties on Tuesday afternoon. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Earlier this morning, an enthusiastic group of supporters joined President Cyril Ramaphosa on a walk from Guguletu to Athlone in Cape Town to promote a healthy lifestyle. Last week, the President and former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel took a walk to the Sea Point Promenade. Ramaphosa says the walk gives him a chance to interact with ordinary South Africans.
This gives me an opportunity to interact with our people, and I've been walking on the Sea Point side, the promenade, and I've been meeting a lot of interesting people, shaking hands and taking selfies, and sometimes I ask them, can I take a selfie with you? So this is a fantastic moment, and I want to thank you for being part of this, because this is how we continue building our nation, being healthy people, being fit, being also fit for purpose, to be able to do things. And one of the great things that's been happening since the sauna speech, many people that I've been meeting have been saying, President, send me to Mamina now. And that has been the rallying cry of many people as I've been meeting them. So it's no longer just me asking to be sent, it's many people that I meet saying, send me as well. So thank you, but lastly, I hope this is a new beginning for you as well. Yes. That many of you have been telling me that you are going to start walking. Yes. You are going to start walking clubs. Some of the people here have running clubs, and I hope the walking clubs will start so that we all get fit and become fit South Africans. And this is, for me, what young people call hashtag Mkaba must fall. Hashtag the tummy must fall. So I want my tummy to fall, so I'm going to continue walking.
Well, to tell us more about the parliamentary proceedings and how they will unfold when President Cyril Ramaphosa replies to the SONA debate this afternoon, we are joined by SABC's Lukhanyo Qalata. Very good morning to you, Lukhanyo. Of course, a very, very long and exhausting day yesterday. What are we expecting come today?
Shante, good morning. Hopefully not as long a day as what we saw yesterday. Yesterday, I mean, MPs sat from around 10 o'clock in the morning all the way till after 8 in the evening, obviously as they were trying to condense the two-day debate of the State of the Nation address into a one-day affair. So what we're likely to see this afternoon, or at least today, is the fact that President Cyril Ramaphosa will respond to the debate at 2 o'clock. I think the morning session is open. We've got a few committees sitting, and I think those committees will run up till about 1 o'clock this afternoon, obviously to allow the MPs the space to then go into the National Assembly this afternoon to then listen to President Ramaphosa's reply to the debate on his State of the Nation address. Shante?
Now, Lukhanyo, why did most MPs concentrate about corruption, state capture, renewal SOEs and the general state of economy? It seemed to be the general consensus amongst the opposition parties yesterday.
Indeed, Shante, those 5 things that you've mentioned were quite, it came up all the time, you know, maybe in different forms, but each and every MP or each and every political party had something to say about corruption, had something to say about the economy, had something to say about, you know, the prosecution of those implicated in state capture, had something to say about the fact that the president seriously needs to tend to the issue of a bloated cabinet. So, you know, it's going to be very interesting to hear the president's response to all of those issues and how soon, basically, he can try to tackle some of those, you know, some of those pressing matters. What we've seen from the president over the weekend, of course, Shante, is the fact that he's already addressed the issue of mining. Yesterday, you know, the mining industry was supposed to go to court. But an intervention from the president saw that, court action being delayed and obviously opening up the space for dialogue. So I think that's exactly the kind of presidency that we're likely to see from Mr. Ramaphosa, putting dialogue ahead of, and trying, in essence, to get consensus and trying to get everybody on board to make sure that everybody is kind of pulling in the right direction, to obviously achieve this new dawn for South Africa, as he has been talking about. Shante?
Now, there was also great concern on who is likely to make it in the new cabinet. And what are some of the names that have been coming up and been doing the rounds?
Shante, I think there are names, but I mean, I would be very loath to speculate right now, because I don't want to say, oh, this person and this person and this person, and only for that to be very different. I think the one big thing that is coming out, though, is the fact that, Human Settlements Minister Lindiwe Sisulu could become the country's next deputy president. Just how likely that is, I mean, it remains to be seen. But yes, there are names, there are lists that are going around, but I mean, that's just mere conjecture, it's just mere speculation, and I don't want to contribute to that. I think let's rather wait up until we hear from the president exactly how he's likely to reshape his cabinet, who's in and who's out. Up until then, it all is just mere speculation. Shante?
Definitely, that is fair. Preparations for the budget speech that is set to be presented tomorrow, how are those going underway?
Shante, I understand that the preparations for the budget speech are well underway. Look, I think what hasn't happened here is that the budget speech and the date for its tabling hasn't changed. So the Finance Minister, Malusi Gigaba, has always known at least that February 21st is the day for him, and I think he's been working hard, towards that. What we saw him yesterday being very calm, walking around the precinct. I mean, I chatted to him for a few seconds just to greet, and he seemed very calm, seemed very prepared. And I think obviously he's also relishing this opportunity because this will be the first main budget that he actually does present. What he tabled last year was the midterm budget, and although everybody was concentrating on it, it's not the main budget. So this will be his main budget that he will table. Whether or not he'll have an opportunity to present another one after this, we don't know. But yesterday he seemed very calm and he seemed very prepared to table what is likely to be a budget that could have some shock for South Africans. Shante?
Definitely. Thank you very much for that, Lucanio. We'll leave it there. SABC's Lucanio Alata giving us updates outside Parliament as to what we can expect come the reply from President Cyril Ramaphosa on the State of the Nation debate that took place yesterday, as well as preparations for tomorrow's budget speech. Moving on, the Gupta lawyers are asking the Hawks to give them documents linking their clients to the Estina dairy farm project. One of the brothers, Atul, filed court papers challenging a preservation order to freeze 10 million rand in his bank account, which is allegedly linked to the scandal. Well, this as the Hawks search for his brother Ajay, who has been declared a fugitive from justice, and it continues.
Well, in court papers, Atul Gupta rubbishes claims that he received 10 million rand from Estina. Well, he says there's no evidence to suggest so, and that the National Director of Public Prosecutions misled the court. Well, he's now asked the High Court in Bloemfontein to set aside the preservation order. For the first time, it's also become clear in these papers that Atul Gupta is not in the country.
As the NPA, we are defending the matter. Our asset forfeiture lawyers are currently working on our papers. We will file on the 21st, and the matter will be heard on the 1st of March in the High Court in Bloemfontein.
Well, the Hawks are on record saying they are looking for Atul and RJ Gupta, and SABC News understands that RJ has procured the services of new lawyers, but his whereabouts are not known. Well, he was declared a fugitive after he failed to hand himself over to the Hawks, and there are also reports that suggest he was spotted in India. While keen for the Guptas to be nabbed, private citizens have offered rewards which some security experts say is dangerous.
There's nothing wrong with offering rewards for information that could lead to the arrests of suspects. But offering money for the arrests of suspects directly is very, very dangerous for a number of reasons. Secondly, when someone is arrested and there is resistance to the arrest, and the arrestee then uses force to carry out the arrest, that may lead to further problems. And if you do not act within the boundaries of what the Criminal Procedure Act provides for, it will become an unlawful arrest, so it will undermine the purpose of all of this, and arresting suspects.
Well, SABC News also understands that RJ's lawyers are also demanding that the Hawks hand over all documentation linking their client to the Estina corruption. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
While the search for the alleged essential players in the state capture project is on, all eyes are now on law enforcement agencies. The latest media report suggests that Gupta brothers and Duduzane Zuma are out of the country. Legal correspondence has been moving back and forth between the alleged state capture role players and law enforcement. One of those is a letter from the National Prosecuting Authority asking Duduzane Zuma to supply them with reasons as to why he should not be prosecuted for culpable homicide. Well, the charge relates to the death of Phumzile Dube on the M1 highway in Sandton in Johannesburg in February of 2014. His Porsche crashed into the minibus that she was travelling in. After an inquest, the NPA decided that Duduzane should not be prosecuted in connection with her death, but that has since changed. Well, last year, Advocate Gerrie Nel, head of the civil rights group AfriForum's private prosecuting unit, applied for a certificate of non-prosecution on behalf of the Dube family so that they could pursue a private prosecution. To discuss this, we are now joined from our Durban studios, Malaya Shabalala, an attorney of the High Court. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, the legal notion of actually having someone provide reasons why they should not be prosecuted, how prevalent is that?
Good morning, viewers at home, and thank you for having me. Well, one can understand, obviously, you know, the concerns that would be raised by all the media houses about an accused obviously being asked to provide reasons why they should not be prosecuted. Then therefore it suffices to say that, well, that is actually known in the criminal trial processes as a pre-trial conference or process which the defense attorney engages upon in order to bring it maybe to the attention of the prosecutors or the state that in actual fact these are the reasons why you should not prosecute the accused. It obviously sometimes happens in situations where after the defense attorneys have seen you know, the statements or the evidence that have been procured through all the investigation channels, and then after reviewing that evidence and then maybe on the point of law, then the defense attorney will then bring it to the attention of the prosecutor that actually you cannot sustain a conviction on the charges that have been brought against the accused. So actually it is a process that is available to anyone. You know, it is a process that to some extent is encouraged, because what it does is that it saves the states from wasting time in prosecuting individuals where they will not sustain a conviction. So as a matter of fact, it is a process that is available to everyone. It is not limited to high-profile individuals. So obviously it depends on the merits of each particular case. If those reasons are drafted properly, and we call them predominantly as representations, if those representations are properly drafted by the defense counsel and you know, the prosecutor reviews them, usually they are taken to superiors like your SPP, senior public prosecutors in our regional courts and our high courts and what have you. So once the public prosecutor looks into those reasons, applies the law as he or she understands it, and then if he or she agrees with the reasoning on the interpretation or explanation of the law, then, or criticizing the evidence that they have, then obviously if they share those sentiments, then they can decline to prosecute.
Definitely. So you've mentioned the process and why it is necessary, but to what point during the criminal investigation does this letter actually get sent to the accused?
Well, actually, hence I say it's a pre-trial. It's a pre-trial process, rather. Well, just before the accused is asked to plead, it would be obviously upon the investigations having been completed, and once that has happened, then obviously the defense would be furnished with the docket, or rather statements, as it is known, would be finished with those statements, which comprises of the evidence and all or whatever witnesses that the state wants to call upon the stands to give witness to the court. It is at that point now when the defense counsel looks into those particular statements and say, wait a minute, as a matter of law of evidence, they cannot sustain a conviction for these reasons, simply because maybe they have not complied with A, B, C, and D, or the evidence is lacking in material form that no court can convict, you know. And usually it applies in situations where it's a question of law of evidence. If it's a factual situation, also, you see, that can also be brought into the attention of the prosecutor as to this would be our defense. And our defense is so strong that you will not sustain a conviction. And sometimes what usually happens is that once those representations have been brought to the attention of the prosecutor, and the prosecutor fails to apply his mind or his discretion and in assessing those reasons and proceeds to prosecute after having been advised that they will not sustain a conviction, then there's a remedy available to that particular accused, which is you bring a civil suit for malicious prosecution. And I've personally have done those kind of applications or actions before, where you say, listen, at this particular point in time, reasons were furnished to the prosecutor that they will not sustain a defense, but nevertheless they proceeded to prosecute. So that would be a remedy that would be available to that particular accused.
Definitely. Lastly, also, can you explain the notion of the private prosecution and how that process is likely to work?
Well, let me just trace it back to our constitution, because I think that's where it would emanate. Well, obviously, there have been various debates that private prosecution is not as postulated or has not been pronounced by the Constitution, because if you look into Section 34 of the Constitution, it says that every individual or every person has a right to bring a dispute before a court of law for a particular redress. And obviously, people, if you apply a narrow interpretation of that provision, you would obviously say, well, the Constitution does not expressly state that private prosecution is something that is allowed in South African law, particularly if you look into Section 197 of the Constitution, which vests the power to prosecute on behalf of the state to the National Prosecuting Authority. However, if you go down, you then will go to the Criminal Procedure Act. There you look into Chapter 1 of that act. There it sets out specifically who can actually bring who can prosecute privately. There the act simply states that where the Director of Public Prosecution declines to prosecute for whatever reasons, and if they so do decline to prosecute, then any individual who's affected by that decision, probably he would come and say, well, listen, because of the commission of a particular crime, I've suffered some injuries as a consequence of that crime. So that person would have to prove a substantial interest in the matter and a peculiar interest in the matter. And then obviously once they've done that, then through their legal representatives or themselves personally, they can then, after obtaining obviously a certificate from an Attorney General, that certificate from an Attorney General will simply say that, well, look, as an Attorney General, I have looked into the statements or the evidence calling me to prosecute, and I have declined to prosecute. In Latin, we call it a certificate. It's called a nolle prosequi. And so once you obtain that certificate, then that private individual can actually prosecute. But it is quite a very expensive exercise because first and foremost, you need to understand the cost implications available. It will obviously not be funded by the state. It would eventually have to come out from the pocket of that private individual. Well, I think there's a fee of 2,500 rands that have to be paid up front, subject to correction, of course. Maybe it would have been increased by now because that was promulgated in 2013. So, and also you have to, by way of a security, you have to cover the cost of the accused in the event, for instance, the court does not find in favor of the private prosecutor. Then, you know, those costs, the court can award costs in favor of the accused. So it is a process that is actually regulated by the Criminal Procedure Act. It is there. So you do have, forums like your AFE forums, which, I mean, there have been debates as to where do they derive their powers to actually establish these units and then also prosecute. Because, I mean, the Act is actually explicitly clear that it is an individual who can bring this, who can privately prosecute, who has suffered some harm, especially a victim. I mean, even a husband can prosecute on behalf of his wife. I mean, a legal guardian can prosecute on behalf of their child. Then the question is, therefore, is how does the Afro Forum feature with all that being said, particularly if you look into Section 7 of that Act. But then if you look further into the Act, to that provision, it does say that it's either an individual can bring that application or that prosecution themselves personally or through their legal representative. So I suppose then, therefore, that's where Afro Forum enters as legal representatives, so to speak, who want to be now prosecuting. So it would have to be the individuals who go to them and say, hey, the prosecutor has declined to prosecute, and then the Afro Forum then approaches the
essentially, just in simple terms, what are the main differences between public and private prosecution, apart from the money and security factors involved?
Well, there are no difference, none whatsoever. Well, once you get into the courtroom, it's the same. Obviously, the difference is that, on the other hand, you've got the public prosecutor prosecuting on behalf of the state. And then on the other, as a private prosecutor, you have a private individual prosecuting on their own behalf, and or you have an Afro Forum unit prosecuting on behalf of that particular individual. So there are no differences at all, safe to say. You know, it is all one process ultimately. The prosecutor will do everything that the other prosecutor would have done in the public scenario. Even if it's private, the same thing, the same processes apply. There are no differences at all.
Thank you very much for joining us and unpacking that for us. Malaya, Shabalala, an attorney of the High Court, giving us some of the differences between civil litigation as well as private prosecution, specifically in the case against Duduzane Zuma. Moving on, the police are expected to testify before the Murane Commission investigating political killings in KZN. It is set to resume in Durban today. The commission is expected to hear evidence from police on various murder cases they are investigating in relation to political killings in the area. Well, a number of witnesses have pointed out shoddy police work in investigations of some of the killings that have not been resolved after a number of months. Our witnesses had raised issues of mistrust, alleging corrupt officials were working with hitmen, some even supplying them with guns. Although there have been arrests in some cases, others remain pending in various courts in the province. Have a look at our question of the day here on SABC Newsroom. We're asking you, what are your expectations from the President's reply to SONA 2080 debate? You can send us your comments on SABC Newsroom. We'll have a look at some of the tweets after the break. For now, though, do stay tuned to SABC Channel 404.
After a horrific accident, major questions were asked.
So step one, I asked myself, do I really want to die? And my answer to that was, I'm not sure. And then step 2 was, do I want my parents to bury me? And the answer to that was no.
Learning kept his brain in full action on how the brain works.
When I was in hospital, right, as I was saying, to catch up with my peers, I started to become obsessed with memory techniques and how the brain works and how we retain information.
Touching lives is his continuous mission.
I now work for a non-profit where we deal with access issues regarding kids with disabilities and persons with disability. We're busy working on beach access.
Being wheelchair-bound did not stop fun in his life.
I party in a wheelchair, I laugh in a wheelchair, I smile in a wheelchair.
For all your uplifting stories, catch Bupilong every Friday.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Well, our question of the day before the break, what are your expectations from the President's reply to the SONA 2018 debate? Let's have a look at some of the comments that have been coming through via SABC Newsroom on Twitter. But the President was silent on the middle-class subsidy on tertiary education and was disappointed but welcomed the land issue without pay. Kagiso says Ramaphosa is a darling to the white monopoly capital. He's going to lie to the poor majority. He's advocating for interests of the minority few who doesn't necessarily constitute even 10% of this country's population, but have 85% of South Africa's wealth safely in their hands. Last one coming in from Kera BK Sibanda. Personally, I'm expecting a timeline from when we can get the land. We are ready to Mamina. Let's have a look at our poll question of the day. Are you surprised that the Guptas got away? Of course, that making headlines, that they could possibly be in India or out of the country. And with over 600 votes coming in, 12% of you are saying yes, we are surprised. 88% of you are saying no. Let's have a look at some of the comments behind those numbers there. Well, Pete says it is a responsibility of our police never to leave any stone unturned on the Guptas investigation. Sema says, not surprised at all. The Guptas have been warned about their arrest before they got away. It's a coincidence how they disappeared just days before residents got raided by hawks. Some warned that they are under a surveillance. Last one coming in from Tabo Quincy Pettit. No, at least now we as South Africans can see that all the emails were true about the Guptas and our former president, Jacob Zuma. Thank you very much for participating in both our question and our poll. Continue to do so throughout the course of the morning. Let's have a look at our picture of the day. This one comes in from Alex T. Machaisa. A sea of people converged for Morgan Tsvangirai in Harare. Even in death, the man continues to inspire. Where heroes are not declared in boardrooms, they are made by the works and by the people. This is an awesome tribute to Morgan. Well done, Zimbabwe. Hashtag rest in peace, Morgan Tsvangirai. Indeed, he is set to be laid to rest today. May his soul rest in peace. The comment of the day comes in from Era, aka Classic. Well, the best way for our people to benefit from mining is if mining companies gave workers a stake in these companies. That's what they did with the automotive sector in Germany. For me, that's the best solution to this impasse. Hashtag mining charter. We do know that proceedings began yesterday in resolution with that. Let's have a look now at what's making headlines front page and center globally in our newspapers this morning. Well, we'll start off here in South Africa. The Star reports that the Hawks have vowed they will use all avenues to ensure the arrest of the Gupta brothers, who are believed to have fled to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. In Swaziland, the Swaziland Observer says the third suspect in the murder of businessman Victor Gamedze, who had previously been unidentified, has now been arrested. And finally, in Namibia, the Namibian reports that activist Job Amupanda has asked the Anti-Corruption Commission to provide him with documents gathered during investigations in matters involving former Attorney General Saki Shangala. Online, let's have a look at what's happening on our Facebook page this morning, SABC Newsroom Facebook page. Well, the case of terror-accused twins is expected to resume in the High Court in Johannesburg today. Brandon Lee and Tony Lee Tulsi were arrested in July 2016 for plotting a series of attacks on Jewish targets and the U.S. Embassy. And then Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo on Monday instituted a forensic investigation in the Provincial Health Department to deal with allegations raised by the members of the public. And finally, Libya's National Oil Corporation, NOC, is suffering ongoing delays in receiving budget money from the government, and this could reduce production, the head of the state company had said yesterday. Or simply search for SABC Newsroom on Facebook, follow us and interact with us. For now though, let's take a short break. Coming up, Zimbabweans to bid farewell to opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai. AU Commission Chairperson Dr. Musa Faki Mahamat urges Zimbabwe's former President Robert Mugabe to help turn the country to civilian rule. Well, 17 people die as a rubbish dump collapses on them in the Mozambican capital of Maputo. Having a look at your lead story this half hour, Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai will be buried in his home village of Buhera this morning. Thousands of people gathered at Harare's Freedom Square yesterday for a final memorial service.
You, my friends, a rare united front. For weeks, Morgan Tsvangirai's 3 lieutenants and their supporters have been at each other's throats. But for his memorial service, they are standing side by side.
The party does not belong to Chamisa or Kupe or Mudzuri, Moyo or Kumichi. The party does not belong to anyone in the leadership. The party belongs to the people.
Opposition tributes continued across the Limpopo.
Ndate Morgan Tsvangirai. We mourn his passing, and I personally will miss him dearly. He offered wise counsel and support to me, and I regret, with all that happened last week, I was not able to speak to him one last time. Morgan was beaten nearly to death many times for his political activism, and he never once wavered for his commitment to fight.
We may not have agreed with the politics of Morgan Tsvangirai, but we fully admit that indeed he won the elections and the regime did not allow him to become the leader of the people of Zimbabwe. We want to say to Morgan Tsvangirai, that will never happen in South Africa. Here we will not allow nonsensical things like those that happened to you in Zimbabwe to happen.
Tsvangirai's body has been flown to Buhera, where the funeral will start at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Ntakwana Ngatani, SABC News.
Well, for more on the role that Morgan Tsvangirai played in the Zimbabwean political space, we are now joined in studio by Chino Mambo from an organization called Zimbabwe Exile Forum. Very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Essentially, what is the mood among Zimbabweans of the passing of your former Prime Minister?
Good morning to you and good morning to you, Chantel. The mood among Zimbabweans is a mood of feeling that we are now lifeless due to the loss of the gallant fighter for democracy. As much as we feel disappointed, we understand the role that the man has played and we understand where he's coming from. Morgan Tsvangirai fought immense battles during his lifetime. He fought against one of the worst dictators in the world. Robert Mugabe was not just a book dictator, but he was a dictator of immense style. And Morgan Tsvangirai managed to rise to the occasion and challenged him. From as early as 1992, when Morgan Tsvangirai was still with the trade union, the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, as the Secretary General, he stood up and said that the way the government was being run was unfair. And he pointed out the sycophancy that already existed in the government as early as then. And he took it upon himself to organize workers so that they could clamour for their share in the way things were being run. Zimbabweans were not yet in that position then, but he managed to make people understand that there was need for change. So coming towards the end of the millennium, he really played a very important role in organizing the workers and forming the MDC, which became the party that managed to defeat Mugabe in elections.
Now, what would you say to some critics saying that he was an agent of the West? What is your response to that?
Morgan Tsvangirai was never an agent of the West at any given moment in time. He is a man that stood with the workers. He understands the day-to-day class struggles of the workers. He understands the day-to-day suffering of the poor masses in the marginalized areas of the land. He understood the way the government was running and the corruption that was within the government structures. So for anybody to want to think that he was an agent of imperialism, that would be very unfortunate. I think he has been portrayed in that way, obviously by the state media, which felt that he was now a threat to power. So that is the only scapegoat that they came up with. But you understand that for us to be able to even give the land reform program, it was courtesy of the coming in of opposition politics. He fought for the people. He fought for the referendum, which wanted to give more power to Mugabe, and he defeated that through a referendum that was done in 2000. And also coming into the new constitution that we have in Zimbabwe at the moment, it is the brainchild of Morgan Tsvangirai. So to try and want to tamper with his image and say that he was a sellout, I think that is quite unimaginable and propaganda at its worst forms.
It definitely seems to have, left an impact, as you've just mentioned. What essentially does this now mean for the MDC going forward with his passing?
Okay, I think there's one thing that we ought to understand. When Tsvangirai announced that he was suffering from colon cancer, the people of Zimbabwe were quite shattered, and they did not know where to turn to. Traditionally, you would have expected to see the ballot papers with the name Morgan Tsvangirai and Mugabe, as it has always been over the past decade, 2 decades. But now, he announced that he had cancer, and people were shattered, and they felt that something was amiss. But one thing that we have to celebrate is that this year in February, Nelson Chamisa turned 40, which provides him the opportunity to be able to stand as a candidate for the opposition. I will tell you this, that the politics of Zimbabwe had followed Morgan Tsvangirai to the hospital, and people had actually lost hope. And you saw what happened in ZANU-PF, Mnangagwa coming on top and claiming the position of the presidency. And that also was a very big blow to opposition, because they could not find a renewal candidate amongst themselves. But then again, nature is its own way of solving problems, and here we see a very charismatic young man, Nelson Chamisa, who I think at this moment is equal to the task, because if you would have gone with any other candidate probably in the coming elections, we would have a one-party state in 2018.
Now, from a different point of view, earlier on I had asked you what the mood was amongst Zimbabweans on the passing of Morgan, and you used such a strong word. You said Zimbabweans feel lifeless. Can you take us through the footprint and the legacy that he would be leaving behind?
Well, Morgan Tsvangirai charted a way for human rights activism. In Zimbabwe, it was unheard of. I think I've described the levels of dictatorship that we went through. But Morgan Tsvangirai inspired the young and the old, and he made them realize that indeed they had a voice. That is the legacy of Morgan Tsvangirai. Morgan Tsvangirai inspired Southern Africa. Morgan Tsvangirai inspired the whole of Africa. Morgan Tsvangirai is a man who managed to traverse 3 countries in Europe without a passport. That bears testimony to the magnanimity the man had. He was understood as a fighter. Morgan Tsvangirai resembles the spirit and the hope of the young African child. So his legacy is infinite. But well, we can speak about his legacy until tomorrow morning. But the bottom line is, he's a man that has carved his name in the books in the sense of history. And to dismiss him as an imperialist agent, I think that would be unfair, as I've alluded to. The constitution that we have, I think I've spoken about the constitution, the human rights and even the government of national unity that you saw happening in Zimbabwe. Even after winning elections and resoundingly with more than 73%, they failed to provide the results. I think the regime failed to provide the results for 33 days. And he could actually say, let us go to war and fight for our, and fight for the election victory. But he is a man who said, I do not want to go to power while I walk on the dead bodies of my fellow countrymen. So he chose unity over war. So this is a man with a legacy that spans, the 40 years of his life. And also, as he was in the unity government, he managed to stabilize the economy within a period of 2 weeks. People could go into the shops and buy. Money could be found all over in the banks and ATMs. That is the man that Morgan Tsvangirai was. And there's been a lot of effort to try and remove him from the books of history. And what we have also seen is that even if they have not pronounced him a hero, he is still a hero among Zimbabweans. And we feel very proud at this moment to say that we have seen and we are going to follow in his footsteps. We understand his vision and we carry his vision and legacy forward.
It is quite sad that he passed away just months after what has been described as a new dawn for Zimbabwe.
Yes, it's very sad, but we understand, when you are suffering from cancer. Cancer is a natural disease. It's one of those diseases that you cannot really treat. And for him to succumb to it, I think we give it upon him. He really did his best. He fought the disease as much as he could. But for when a man has done his part for the nation, he deserves to rest. And I think that he has not died, he has just rested, and the spirit of Tsvangirai lives among the people of Zimbabwe forever.
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. That was Chino Mambo from Zimbabwe, the Exile Forum, just giving us a bit behind the man of Morgan Tsvangirai and the legacy, of course, that he will be leaving behind. Well, at least 17 people have died and several others injured in Zimbabwe's capital on Monday when a 15-meter pile of garbage collapsed due to heavy rain burying several houses. The collapse happened in the impoverished Hulane neighborhood, which is around 10 kilometers from the center of Maputo. Of course, let's also cross in with some of your sporting highlights. Kendall Makamate is standing by to give us all of our sporting highlights this morning.
Thank you very much, Shante. Good morning to you. Yes, it is Kendall Makamate with the sports right here on Newsroom. Now, our sporting question for you today to interact with us on the show is, yes, a couple of days ago, it did happen. The under-17, South Africa's under-17 women's team qualified for the World Cup in Uruguay, being the first from CAF to do so. What do you make of this great feat by these young women, these young intrepid women? We've got some tweets that have come in. Erin Smash says, I wish them all the best, and they must be aware that they are representing our country. Big up. Show other countries that you can. Erin's Mash Mabela Topanama from Zani. And Michael Bigamstola says, very good news indeed, and we as a nation are proud of them, but my main concern with all our ladies' national sides in football is their fitness levels. Don't get me wrong, they can all play, but when it comes to big games, you'll see that their physical fitness side of things, well, it lacks. Well, Michael, you know what? They have qualified for the World Cup, which Bafana have not. How fit are they? We've got one more that we're going to share with you right now. In fact, we're not going to do it right away. We'll do it for you a little later.
Bantwana returned from Morocco in high spirits after qualifying for the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Uruguay. The last time South Africa qualified for the biennial tournament at this level was back in 2010. Bantwana wrapped up their qualifying campaign on Saturday with a 1-0 win over Morocco on the road after an emphatic 5-1 win against the North Africans at the Dobsonville Stadium 2 weeks ago.
The growth of women's football has been significant. We now have more than 450,000 women footballers. And we want to grow women's football to see at least 1 million women football players by 2022 in this country. We want to launch the National Women's League in 2019 because in 2020 FIFA is launching a World Women's League and we want to be part of that.
This time Bantwana will prepare adequately for the tournament scheduled for the 13th of November to the 1st of December.
South Africa, this
is not the beginning, but it is the continuation of where we come from, where the others that came before us come from. The future is bright, and it can only go further if we really believe in a dream that each one of us have and support the dream diligently.
Qualifying for the World Cup is a huge achievement for us, and we had a motto that kept us going, which said, be fresh, be fit, and ready to conquer the world. So now we have not yet conquered the world, but we have conquered our goal and our purpose.
Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates coach Milutin Sredojevic's excellent work for the month of January has been recognized. Sredojevic was voted ABSA Premiership Coach of the Month for January after his team won 3 out of 5 matches to be considered serious league contenders this season. Maritzburg United midfielder Spesi Hlendlovu was voted Player of the Month, and Tiani Mabunda's goal for Mamelodi Sundowns against Bloemfontein Celtic was voted Goal of the Month for December. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And of course, that was that wonderful celebration of the Banyana Banyana, the junior Banyana Banyas, Abantwana, and making sure that they get to the Uruguay World Cup. We'll stay with footballing news, and this time we'll talk about how third-tier Wigan Athletic lived up to the billing as Manchester City's bogey team by beating a 10-man Premier League side 1-0 in a stunning FA Cup fifth-round upset yesterday. City played the entire second half with 10 men after midfielder Fabian Delph was sent off in the 45th minute for a late challenge on Max Power.
Delph in a way that Anthony Taylor sees as dangerous. It's a yellow card. And
oh, he's now got his red card out, has he? Yeah, he's going to give him a red.
For the side that beat City twice recently in the FA Cup, there was always the hint of an upset in the air.
Could get in here. He does get in. Will Grigg, who's hardly had a kick, but that kick could go into the history books. Wigan lead Manchester City in the FA Cup. Wigan have not matched.
Will Grigg coolly slotted home the win in the 79th minute to trigger chants of Will Grigg's on fire around the DW Stadium. The defeat ended City's hopes of an unprecedented quadruple of trophies this season. Wigan now will now host another Premier League team, Southampton, in next month's quarterfinals, having now been beaten 3 top-flight sides in their fairy tale cup run. Now, story of the day, former Springbok coach Peter de Villiers has fired some heavy parting shots at the South African Rugby Union as he moves to Zimbabwe to take up the national coaching position there. De Villiers says South African Rugby blacklisted him from coaching in South Africa since he left the Springboks in 2011. He also claims that Boerland Rugby was offered 2 million rand from South African Rugby to not appoint him as coach.
De Villiers says when he became the preferred candidate for the Zimbabwe position, somebody from Zimbabwe Rugby phoned him with news that shocked him.
And they said to me, yeah, it's a problem now. SA Rugby called us and said that you are blacklisted, they can't appoint you. Well, I called somebody in South African Rugby who were the president then and asked him where does it come from, and he said he doesn't know about it. It was never discussed and those kind of things. But that's why we've got our government, we've got our laws in the country, and we get laws like blacklisted law, and then we get rugby and church and school, and everybody has their own laws of blacklisting people the way they want to do it. And when you find out about it, it's sometimes too late in your life, you know. But I'm so glad that I'm blacklisted. I'm really glad. It gave me that comfort that I'm not welcome in my country.
The South African Rugby Union responded by saying the allegations are completely untrue and instead congratulated de Villiers on his appointment as Zimbabwe coach. De Villiers went on to question the competence of the current SA Rugby management team.
If your boss played second team for Marties, and we all know that if you play second team for Marties, you're actually in the 5th team of the union. And you've been a guy who followed rugby, and Springbok is your pinnacle. Just to be there amongst them is already great for you. You know you will never earn a rugby jersey at any level because you're playing 5th team for. So now, let's do the second best thing. Let's get close to the team. Now, if I don't have that knowledge of the game, how can what gives me the right to tell my worker, my coach, you are doing wrong here, why don't you try that?
De Villiers feels he's not wanted in South African rugby and says one of the first things he'll do is to learn the Zimbabwean national anthem to repay them for the loyalty they showed. Harry Olivier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now from one prodigal son to maybe another. South African tennis star Kevin Anderson has moved up to a career-best 9th place in the world rankings. On Sunday, Anderson beat American Sam Kerry to win the inaugural New York Open. Now, Anderson had not won a title since 2015 and injuries had taken a toll since then. There was, however, no inkling of any injury problems in his final against Kerry. Although the American won the first set, Anderson, with his powerful serve, remained in the picture. Kerry's frustration levels continued to rise as the South African took more control of the match. Anderson finally recorded a 4-6, 6-3, 7-6 win in 2 hours and 13 minutes to make it his 4th career title. Moving on to the Winter Olympics, where Canadian ice dancers Tessa Virtue and Scott Moir claimed the 2nd Olympic gold with a new world record at the Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. Their winning score of 206.07 just eclipsed the previous best that was set moments before by silver medalist France. Elsewhere, another Canadian, Cassie Shaw, produced a dominant performance to win gold in the women's ski halfpipe final. She posted the best score in each of the first 2 runs of the halfpipe final, her best in 96.80.
Virtue and Moya also won gold in Vancouver 8 years ago. They briefly retired after a silver in Sochi in 2014, but have dominated the event since coming out of retirement in 2016. They scored 122.40 in the free program, and thanks to their short skate point on Monday, just edged out France's Gabriela Papadakis and Jerome Cizeron.
An arena on its feet.
They left it on the ice, exactly where they wanted it to be.
American siblings Alex and Maya Shabutani claimed the bronze, only the 2nd brother and sister team to win an Olympic medal in ice dance. Meanwhile, the Canadian 2-man bobsleigh team say it's an honor to share the gold with Germany. Justin Cripps and Alexander Kopacz clocked exactly the same time as Germans Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margus in Tuesday's final. The teams posted a combined time of 3 minutes 16.86 seconds after 4 runs.
The time is the same. We've got 2 gold medals.
No way.
We have got a tie at the Olympic Sliding Centre. This is amazing.
I had started celebrating, and I saw Torsten and Friedrich jump into the track, and they were just raising their hands up and jumping up and down. And you know, at first I was just sort of assumed that they were happy for us that we'd won, and
very Canadian of us.
That they had got an Olympic silver medal, which is a massive achievement as well. And then we were just completely mobbed by people, Canadians, other countries, congratulating us, and Torsten was right in there, and he gave me a big hug, and he said, "We did it. We're Olympic champions. We tied." And I was like, "Wow, we tied!" Like what an incredible race.
It was almost comical. Just trying to understand the situation we've tied, because tying in bobsled, specifically within our field of the last 4 years, is quite a feat. I mean, 100th of a second is almost a 13th of an eye blink. It's very hard to imagine over, I think you put it best, 5 kilometers of track, more or less. Yeah, just a tremendous moment.
Might have been rock, paper, scissors to decide who got up first.
It's the first time in 20 years that the Olympic title is shared. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
And that's it from the sports desk. In the meantime, President Cyril Ramaphosa will today reply to the joint sitting on the SONA debate. His reply comes a few days after he delivered his maiden SONA following his election as new president last week. The joint SONA debate, which lasted from about 10 hours yesterday, saw political parties raising various issues ranging from expropriation of land without compensation to his promise to fight corruption.
One of the first and greatest tests for our president will be the issue of land. There is a wound among our people that has never been healed.
Let those who work the land own the land.
I want to warn him, the leader of the opposition, that your stay in the metros is going to depend on your attitude on the expropriation of land without compensation.
Point of order.
Whose properties are you going to take?
What's your point of order?
Is it going to be the properties of the great-grandchildren of the slaves that came from Malay Peninsula and from the Philippines Island? Whose properties are you going to take?
Please take your seat.
Please, you must let us know.
The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa.
President Ramaphosa will have his work cut out for him this afternoon when he replies to these and other tough questions posed during the SONA debate. Police are expected to take the stand as the Morane Commission resumes this morning. Zimbabweans to bid farewell to opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai.
New Zimbabwe national rugby coach Peter de Villiers, the last South African coach to win the Tri-Nations, fires off the serious allegation that SARU actively blacklisted him for years.
And they said to me, yeah, it's a problem now as a rugby coach.
Kendall Makamate is standing by. I'm Shante Yankees, of course, taking you through your news. And Kendall with your sports. Very good morning to you, Kendall. You good? What are we expecting sporting-wise today?
Well, we've got a lot to look forward to in terms of sports, a little bit to celebrate about Peter de Villiers finally getting a job as a coach, as well as we've got some UEFA Champions League action tonight. So be sure that you stick around with us because we'll bring you all of that in more detail around about 10:40.
Your top story at 10 o'clock, President Cyril Ramaphosa will reply to the debate on his maiden State of the Nation address this afternoon at 2 p.m. The National Assembly sat for 10 hours yesterday as parliamentarians debated the president's speech.
It was a long sitting for MPs. This debate usually takes place over 2 days. But of course, due to all the political developments unfolding in the country, the debate was set down for 1 day only. This was to accommodate the program of Parliament for this week.
It is our considered view that the President needs to expedite his meeting with the leaders of all spheres of government, managers and premiers, to commit them to the new dawn he referred to on his address.
When it comes to corruption, you came up gun blazing on Friday. But proof of the pudding is in the eating. As the PAC, we wonder if you will be able to deal with corruption properly.
Hope and change must be measured on how the material conditions of the working poor has changed for the better.
Step up your efforts to deal with corruption. Our people want to see that perpetrators of crime who plundered the state coffers are arrested and prosecuted in the relevant foreign courts. Our law enforcement agencies should interact with Interpol and their counterparts in other jurisdictions to ensure that all fugitives with relation to state capture are apprehended and brought to book.
The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa. It's a fact. SARS is failing to collect revenue in a manner in which is expected. A shortfall of 50 billion rands, as was announced here. The National Prosecutions Authority is dysfunctional. It works according to who is in political office. They only make arrests now that Jacob Zuma is no more.
We must learn the lessons of how Zuma was able to capture the state, subjugate our parliament, and tame our institutions. One man could never wreak such devastation on his own. So while you set to work, Mr. President, on fixing the executive, we as parliament must introspect very honestly and very carefully about how we fix our parliament and address its failings over the last 8 years to effect oversight.
I was intrigued today to note how antiseptic the response to your call for deep debate has been. And I envy you not, in trying to develop a substantial response to some of what has been said.
Throughout the debates, President Cyril Ramaphosa was seen taking notes and listening intently. He will respond to political parties on Tuesday afternoon. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Earlier this morning, an enthusiastic group of supporters joined President Ramaphosa on a walk from Gugulethu to Athlone in Cape Town to promote a healthy lifestyle. Last week, the President and former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel took a walk to the Sea Point Promenade. Ramaphosa says the walk gives him a chance to interact with ordinary South Africans.
This gives me an opportunity to interact with our people, and I've been walking on the Sea Point side, the promenade, and I've been meeting a lot of interesting people, shaking hands and taking selfies, and sometimes I ask them, can I take a selfie with you? So this is a fantastic moment, and I want to thank you for being part of this, because this is how we continue building our nation, being healthy people, being fit, being also fit for purpose, to be able to do things. And one of the great things that's been happening since the SONA speech, many people that I've been meeting have been saying, President, send me to me now. And that has been the rallying cry of many people as I've been meeting them. So it's no longer just me asking to be sent, it's many people that I meet saying, send me as well. So thank you, but lastly, I hope this is a new beginning for you as well. Yes. That many of you have been telling me that you are going to start walking. Yes. You are going to start walking clubs. Some of the people here have running clubs, and I hope the walking clubs will start so that we all get fit and become fit South Africans. And this is, for me, what young people call hashtag Mkaba must fall. Hashtag the tummy must fall. So I want my tummy to fall, so I'm going to continue walking.
Well, the Gupta lawyers are asking the Hawks to give them documents linking their clients to the Estina dairy farm project. One of the brothers, Atul, filed court papers challenging a preservation order to freeze 10 million rand in his bank account, which is allegedly linked to the scandal. Well, this comes as Hawks search for his brother Ajay, and he has been declared a fugitive from justice.
Well, in court papers, Atul Gupta rubbished his claims that he received 10 million rand from Estina. Well, he says there's no evidence to suggest so, and that the National Director of Public Prosecutions misled the court. Well, he's now asked the High Court in Bloemfontein to set aside the preservation order. For the first time, it's also become clear in these papers that Atul Gupta is not in the country.
As the NPA, we are defending the matter. Our asset forfeiture lawyers are currently working on our papers. We will file on the 21st, and the matter will be heard on the 1st of March in the High Court in Bloemfontein.
Well, the Hawks are on record saying they are looking for Atul and RJ Gupta, and SABC News understands that RJ has procured the services of new lawyers, but his whereabouts are not known. Well, he was declared a fugitive after he failed to hand himself over to the Hawks, and there are also reports that suggest he was spotted in India. While keen for the Guptas to be nabbed, private citizens have offered rewards which some security experts say is dangerous.
There's nothing wrong with offering rewards for information that could lead to the arrests of suspects. But offering money for the arrests of suspects directly is very, very dangerous for a number of reasons. Secondly, when someone is arrested and there is resistance to the arrest, and the arrestee then uses force to carry out the arrest, that may lead to further problems. And if you do not act within the boundaries of what the Criminal Procedure Act provides for, it will become an unlawful arrest, so it will undermine the purpose of all of this, and arresting suspects.
Well, SABC News also understands that RJ's lawyers are also demanding that the Hawks hand over all documentation linking their client to the Estina corruption. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
The Morane Commission investigating political killings in KZN is currently underway. Let's cross live. Well, of course, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll cross live to those proceedings we are set to take place today and begin this morning. For now, though, let's take a short break.
Welcome to Media Monitor, the show that analyzes the big news stories that made headlines. We bring you robust discussions on stories that made headlines in the week, where we interact with media analysts to unpack these top stories. Join me every Sunday morning from 9 to 10 Central African Time as I bring you riveting news and analysis.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Corruption both in the public and the private sectors needs to be combated.
Where there are clear cases of wrong that has been done, that must commence immediately.
Something is being done about corruption in our country.
Currency, even although it strengthened dramatically after the ANC's recent electoral conference, could conceivably go stronger yet.
He had a soul that would not be for sale.
Stay tuned to Your World for your final news roundup, Monday to Sunday at 21:30.
Indeed, welcome back to SABC Newsroom here. Let's have a look at our question of the day that we have been asking you. Of course, we have been asking you, what are your expectations from the President's reply to the SONA debate? Continue to send your comments on at SABC Newsroom. Let's have a look at our picture of the day. This one comes in from Alex Timakaisa. A sea of people converged for Morgan Tsvangirai in Harare. Even in death, the man continues to inspire. Heroes are not declared in boardrooms. They are made by their works and by the people. This is an awesome tribute to Morgan. Well done, Zimbabwe. That's, of course, our picture of the day coming there with thousands showing their commemoration. Also speaking to representative from the Zimbabwe Forum this morning, alluding to the impact that he has had on Zimbabweans. Let's have a look at the comment of the day. This one comes in from Ara, aka Classic. Well, the best way for our people to benefit from the mining is if mining companies give workers a stake in these companies. Well, that's what they did with the automotive sector in Germany. For me, that's the best solution to this impasse. Hashtag mining charter. Have a look now at our front pages from the continent in our newspapers this morning. We'll start here at home in South Africa. Of course, the Star is reporting that the Hawks have vowed that they will use all avenues, of course, to ensure that they make progress in all of their doings, as well as the legalities that have been taking place. We've also been having a look at what's been trending on our Facebook page this morning online. The case of a terror accused and the twins is also expected to resume in the High Court in Johannesburg today. For now, though, let's cross live to those proceedings that have just come in. The Morane Commission is taking place in KZN this morning.
Billion. We are aware that it includes software upgrades and so forth. So, as I've indicated, it's a bigger investigation. So we've requested all contracts relating to FDA. Hence, we estimate that these are the cost of the contracts that were made with FDA. So we'll be following up on all these contracts and establish where there is criminality and be able to take all these matters to court. it's quite an extensive investigation, and hence the need to get this forensic aspect to assist our investigators. Whether we've made recommendations on recovery, especially to institutions like AGSA, we haven't done so. In our interactions with AGSA, as the auditors internally, we do raise these issues that we find. We've also alerted Treasury, hence Treasury is also assisting us in procuring the services of these forensics, because we don't have the financial muscle to pay for their fees. So that is taken care of by National Treasury. So we've made them aware, and they are aware of this investigation. However, because it's a criminal investigation, that is why our engagements with asset forfeiture unit for recovery. So the meetings that we have with the specialized commercial crime unit of the NPA on a regular basis also involve the asset forfeiture unit, so that where there are breakthroughs in this investigation, then they can proceed in doing necessary Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 application for recovery of assets. The issue with regard to Captain KGB Shabalala, honorable member, it's a very strange thing, because a person is convicted, it's employed in the SAPS after he's already been convicted. SAPS is not able to pick up that this person is convicted. You expect that any police officer, before he's employed, he's vetted. So when you go through a vetting process, you should be able to pick up that a person has got a criminal record, or in this case of KGP, he's a wanted criminal. But be that as it may, he was appointed, even with that hanging, you know. When we arrested him and opposed his bail, he said in court that he wasn't aware that, because he had appealed and he was on bail pending appeal. So his appeal came in 98 and was dismissed. So he was supposed to hand himself over to the prison authorities. And he alleged that he was not aware of that, which is very strange. But we put facts to court that it cannot be. It cannot be that he could not have been aware of that. Hence, the bail was denied in this matter. But what is most disturbing is that even after he is dismissed, after he went to serve, he is released on parole in 2015, and then SAPS re-employs him, knowing this fact. Now, part of our challenge is that what you've alluded to about documents, because we said we want his personal file, because we should be able to establish from the personal files who was responsible for rehiring him into the SAPS and so forth. That information is not forthcoming. So that is part of the challenge that we have. But clearly, someone must have approved his reappointment in the SAPS. So that is the things that we'll be looking at. The forensic investigators are assisting us, and in due course we'll be able to ascertain the exact amounts involved in all these corruption matters. Currently, as we said, we can only estimate based on the assessment, preliminary assessment of the available information. And with regard to officials from SETA, it's part of the ongoing investigation. We would, of course, charge even officials within SETA that collaborated with SAPS in ensuring that FDA get these contracts corruptly. As to what happened to General Namatenzela, we recommended that he be suspended. He was suspended. However,
well, just coming out there of the Murane Commission with regards to those political killings in KZN. Moving on now, Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai will be buried in his home village of Buhera this morning. Thousands of people gathered at Harare's Freedom Square yesterday for a final memorial service.
You, my friends,
a rare united front. For weeks, Morgan Tsvangirai's 3 lieutenants and their supporters have been at each other's throats. But for his memorial service, they are standing side by side.
The party does not belong to Chamisa or Kupe or Mudzuri, Moyo or Kumichi. The party does not belong to anyone in the leadership. The party belongs to the people.
Opposition tributes continued across the Limpopo.
Ndate Morgan Tsvangirai. We mourn his passing, and I personally will miss him dearly. He offered wise counsel and support to me, and I regret, with all that happened last week, I was not able to speak to him one last time. Morgan was beaten nearly to death many times for his political activism, and he never once wavered for his commitment to fight.
We may not have agreed with the politics of Morgan Tsvangirai, but we fully admit that indeed he won the elections and the regime did not allow him to become the leader of the people of Zimbabwe. We want to say to Morgan Tsvangirai, that will never happen in South Africa. Here we will not allow nonsensical things like those that happened to you in Zimbabwe to happen.
Tsvangirai's body has been flown to Buhera, where the funeral will start at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Ntakwana Ngatani, SABC News.
Now let's take a look at the life and times of MDC leader Morgan Tsvangirai.
Former Prime Minister Tsvangirai was born on the 10th of March 1952 in the Gutu area south of Harare, the son of a bricklayer. He is the eldest of the 9 children. After leaving school early to support his family, Tsvangirai started working in Zimbabwe mines. In 1978, he married the late Susan Mudwa, who was affectionately known as Amai President. Mrs. Tsvangirai died on the 6th of March 2009 in a tragic road collision en route to Buhera that also injured the Prime Minister. Between 1974 and 1984, Morgan became a union member and organizer at the Trojan Nickel Mine. He started at the mine as a plant operator and became General Foreman in 1975. He became Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions and later persuaded the union to cut ties with ZANU-PF, the Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front. He led a national strike, the first in the nation's history, demanding economic reforms to combat Zimbabwe's high inflation and unemployment rate. Days after leading a strike, he was beaten unconscious and nearly killed in his union's office by supporters of President Robert Mugabe. September 11, 1999, the Movement for Democratic Change is launched with Tsvangirai as president. Tsvangirai helped form the MDC together with the union and a variety of civil organizations representing women and students. He was unanimously voted president of the new party.
I recognize the honor you have bestowed on me. I know the depth of your feelings, and I know the nation's expectations. I promise to deliver a service in your name. I promise to lead from the front, and I promise to use all available resources and the willpower of the people to see off this tyranny of Zimbabwe.
In 2001, he attended the executive leadership program at Harvard University. During his political career, Tsvangirai has survived several assassination attempts, the first being in 1997 when an unidentified assailant attempted to throw him out of the window of a Harare office building. In 2001, Tsvangirai was awarded the prestigious Solida Silva Rose Award for outstanding achievement by an individual or organization in the activities of civil society and in bringing about a fairer and a more just society. The following year, in 2002, he was arrested and charged with treason in a suspected plot to assassinate President Mugabe. Just before the presidential elections in 2002, a secretly recorded videotape emerged which purported to show Tsvangirai discussing Mugabe's assassination with security consultants in Canada ahead of the presidential elections. His trial started the following year on charges of treason and attempted assassination. In 2003, Tsvangirai was arrested and later jailed for allegedly violating the Public Order and Security Act by encouraging a general strike lasting 5 days in the capital city of Harare. He was widely quoted by various media when he told the rally of his MDC party that if Mugabe does not go peacefully, he will be removed by force. For that statement, Tsvangirai was charged with treason for a third time in 2003. Morgan was briefly detained as his supporters launched a series of mass protests dubbed the final push to oust Mugabe. During the same month, he was arrested again shortly after holding a news conference to call for more protests. In October 2004, he was acquitted for treason charges by the Zimbabwe High Court. But Tsvangirai and his two accused, Welshman Ncube and Renson Gasela, who were acquitted earlier, pleaded not guilty. He said he was framed and his comments taken out of context. A charismatic speaker, considered brave by his supporters, he emerged during the year 2000 parliamentary elections as popular challenger to President Robert Mugabe. Despite that, Tsvangirai drew Zimbabweans in their millions to vote for him and the MDC in the next 3 elections until 2005, each one progressively marred by allegations of cheating and violent intimidation by Mugabe. In 2007, he was severely beaten while in police custody after being arrested on his way to an anti-government protest rally.
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
It was a horrible assault.
Well, it was a violent, sadist attack on defenseless people. Okay.
The following year, he claimed victory in elections. But Zimbabwe Electoral Commission announced a runoff election between Tsvangirai and Mugabe, although Tsvangirai had received more votes, 47.9 to 43. In 2008, he pulled out of the runoff, declaring that he can no longer participate in a race that's been marred by widespread intimidation, torture, mutilation, and murder of his supporters.
We in the MDC have resolved that we will no longer participate in this violent, illegitimate sham of an election process. The courageous people of Zimbabwe, of this country, and the people of the MDC have done everything humanly and democratically possible to deliver a new Zimbabwe under a new government.
But after successful negotiations, Mugabe and Tsvangirai signed the Global Political Agreement, which stated that Tsvangirai would become Prime Minister and Mugabe will remain President, Commander-in-Chief and Chairman of the Cabinet.
I have signed this agreement because I believe it represents the best opportunity for us to build a peaceful, prosperous, democratic Zimbabwe. I have signed this agreement because my belief in Zimbabwe and its peoples runs deeper than the scars I bear from the struggle.
Zimbabwe's long-time opposition leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, was sworn in as Prime Minister of a unity government on the 11th of February 2009, ending President Robert Mugabe's 29-year monopoly on power. For Tsvangirai's movement for democratic change, the inauguration kept a decade of non-violent resistance to President Robert Mugabe's rule. The same year, along with MDC, Tsvangirai boycotted the coalition government after violence increased and Roy Bennett, one of MDC's leaders, was arrested on charges of terrorism. Tsvangirai lost 2003 presidential elections with 34% of the vote to President Robert Mugabe's 61, according to the Election Commission. Tsvangirai alleged widespread fraud and promised to challenge the results in
assure
court.
you that the people's victory is assured in spite of the regime's attempts to subvert the people's will through other fraudulent activities that have been unearthed.
The election results brought an end to the 2008 Government of National Unity, facilitated by former South African President Thabo Mbeki. During the GNU, Tsvangirai served as Prime Minister and Mugabe remained the President. On the 9th of August 2013, MDC filed a court challenge to the results of Zimbabwe's general elections, which the party criticized as fraudulent. The party wanted to have results of the July 31 election declared null and void by the Constitutional Court and fresh elections held. The MDC withdrew the case after the hearing, but the court went ahead to dismiss the application. On the 27th of June 2016, Tsvangirai revealed that he was suffering from colon cancer. Lehana Tsotitsi, SABC News.
Do you have a funeral policy?
No matter the sacrifices you've made or the hours you've worked, you can't always say yes. Avbob's cashback funeral plan not only provides funeral insurance for your family, but also helps you to say yes to life's little extras more often. Because for every 5 claim-free years, you'll get your 5th year's premiums based on your monthly premium value paid back in cash. SMS Cash 1 to 41790 at no cost, and we'll call you. Avbob, we're here for you.
If you want an AVBOB representative to contact you, SMS Cash 1 and your name to 41790.
AU Commission Chairperson Dr. Musa Faki Mahamat urges Zimbabwe's former President Robert Mugabe to help turn the country to civilian rule. Well, 17 people die as a rubbish dump collapses on them in the Mozambican capital in Maputo. So with that, at least 17 people died and several others were injured in Zimbabwe's capital on Monday when a 15-meter pile of garbage collapsed due to heavy rain, burying several houses. The collapse happened in the impoverished Hualane neighborhood, which is around 10 kilometers from the center of Maputo. Officials say the houses were built illegally and authorities had previously asked the residents to leave. Well, indeed.
Well, we've got a little sporting question that we want to ask you to bring you onto the show. We want to find out from you. The under-17, South Africa's under-17 women's team have qualified for the World Cup in Uruguay. And you've been giving us comments of what you make of this great feat. And we'd like to share some of those with you out there. Let's see what's been said on Twitter and social media about the under-17, these young women, and how well they have been doing. And it seems as if we'll only be sharing those with you a little later, so make sure you stay with us. Thank you, Shante.
Indeed, thank you very much for that, Kendall. For now, though, we'll take a short break. Do stay tuned to SABC Newsroom.
Take an in-depth look of all your stories of the day across the world. Stay tuned to Primetime News every day from 18 hours.
Live budget speech on Wednesday at 1400 hours.
South Africa is in need of a frank dialogue about the state of our nation. My name is Omkhopotse JJ Tavane. Join me on Frankly Speaking every Sunday at 8:30. Come now, let's talk frankly.
Welcome back to SABC Newsroom. Let's cross over live now to Parliament on an inquiry based around the SABC.
We know that it must be the National Commissioner in the absence of any delegation. Hence, our correspondence goes to the National Commissioner to say we need these documents. And as I'm saying, it's been promises, but nothing has happened, and it's been months that has been going on. The rapid deployment intelligence matter, as I've indicated, you know, most of the information we get is from some of the operatives within CI. But you'll understand that because of the nature of the work in CI, the information you get it unanimously. You know, people won't want to come out. So we have to follow up based on the information we have, and hence the need for declassification of documents to enable us to do a proper investigation, get to the bottom of who is involved, and be able to get statements from those people or charge people who are involved. In the absence of declassification, it becomes difficult for us to continue with our work. So that is the difficulty we have. We're working with the Inspector General of Intelligence in these matters, as we've indicated earlier that we have a memorandum of understanding with Inspector General of Intelligence. However, hence our last recommendation on the amendments of the Oversight Act of also the Inspector General, because the Inspector General also cannot declassify. Even if he can have access to these declassified documents, but he cannot declassify them. You still need the SAPS to declassify. So in the absence of that, all of us, our hands are tied. So the issue of looking at the best model that will enable not only us, but even yourself to do your oversight work is to look at the legislative regime that we have. Does it adequately enable us to do the work that we have to do from our side as IPID in terms of holding the police, even in the CI, accountable for work that they do, but also the AGSA, because they can also not go into those documents if they are declassified. So even their audit becomes limited, you know. So hence, part of our recommendation is that we have to look at the legislative regime that we have to say, does it adequately enable us to do the work that will enable us to hold crime intelligence accountable? So the issue relating to other functionaries, honourable member, we definitely zooming into everyone that is involved, because we have established that for FDA to be able to get these contracts, there are lower level officers who were playing a very prominent role in facilitating this. So we need to, we will definitely be joining them in this as suspects in these matters. Depending on the role that they played, some of them may even come the so-called 204 witnesses in this investigation. So definitely we'll be dealing with everyone that has been involved, both at SAPS as well as at CETA. Whether there are similar transactions like the one that happened on one day, I cannot confirm or deny that there are. We have not, so far we've only picked up that one, but because the work of forensic investigators it's still continuing, I cannot overrule the possibility of getting similar transaction. We must understand that we're dealing with a huge volume of documents in terms of these contracts, so it's quite a tedious work that is involved. Thank you, Chairperson. Colonel Kobel will answer the one relating to General Mluli.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable members, what I can inform this committee about the declassification of the documentation regarding General Mluli is that we have tried since 2012 to get the relevant documentation declassified. I could not ask the author of the documents because he's implicated in the matter, so it has to go to the National Commissioner's office to get it declassified. There's only two people that can declassify, the author or the National Commissioner's office. Since 2012, we've written to then Commissioner Piega, after that Commissioner Patlani, Acting Commissioner Patlani, Acting Commissioner Mutiba, and currently we've written to via IPID to National Commissioner Sitole. We have since 2012, we've been given the runaround in terms of the declassification. Others requesting as to why we have the documents, which is still in SABC's possession because DPCI is within SABC, or where there's a aspersion casted in terms of how the documents were seized. It was done lawfully in terms with the employers, which is SABC, with their permission, together with the search warrant. So we are struggling since then to get the documents declassified. Crime intelligence has played a big role in muddying the waters, asking questions which is not relevant, and kicking for touch. That is where we stand with Mr. Mluli at this point in time in terms of the declassification of the documentation.
All right, thanks. Comrade Kuno.
Thank you, Chairperson. On a lighter note, as they were presenting, I wanted to ask, is it parliamentary to call a political party, political party's name as part of your investigations? But I thought I was going to disrupt. He was too serious. I wanted him to laugh a little bit. But Chairperson, and thanks for the presentation. We really have a serious problem. And I hope that working together we'll be able to solve the problem. First things first, we had a meeting with ATCC, Anti-Corruption Task Team, and they deal with matters of 5 million rands and more. And I would have, I would have thought that you are working with them.
Just coming out of that inquiry in Parliament around the SABC. For now, though, we take a break away from your news. Let's cross over to the sporting desk with Chino Mambo standing by.
Shante, thank you very much. Hearty good morning to you all at home. It's time for the sports right here in Newsroom. Now we start off with a story about how the South Africa's under-17 girls team qualified for this year's FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Uruguay, and how this will increase their country's chances of being included in the Women's World League that will be launched by FIFA in the year 2020. SAFA President Danny Jordan says the future Banyana stars will help the country realize Vision 2022. South Africa, Cameroon and Ghana are the 3 African countries to represent the continent at the World Cup later this year.
Bantwana returned from Morocco in high spirits after qualifying for the FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Uruguay. The last time South Africa qualified for the biennial tournament at this level was back in 2010. Bantwana wrapped up their qualifying campaign on Saturday with a 1-0 win over Morocco on the road after an emphatic 5-1 win against the North Africans at the Dobsonville Stadium 2 weeks ago.
The growth of women's football has been significant. We now have more than 450,000 women footballers, and we want to grow women's football to see at least 1 million women football players by 2022 in this country. We want to launch the National Women's League in 2019 because in 2020 FIFA is launching a World Women's League, and we want to be part of that.
This time Bantwana will prepare adequately for the tournament scheduled for the 13th of November to the 1st of December.
South Africa, this is not the beginning, but it is the continuation of where we come from, where the others that came before us come from. The future is bright, and it can only go further if we really believe in a dream that each one of us have and support that dream diligently.
Qualifying for the World Cup is a huge achievement for us, and we had a motto that kept us going, which said, be fresh, be fit, and ready to conquer the world. So now we have not yet conquered the world, but we have conquered our goal and our purpose.
Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates coach Milutin Sredojevic's excellent work for the month of January has been recognized. Sredojevic was voted ABSA Premiership Coach of the Month for January after his team won 3 out of 5 matches to be considered serious league contenders this season. Maritzburg United midfielder Spesi Ndlovu was voted Player of the Month, and Tiani Mabunda's goal for Mamelodi Sundowns against Bloemfontein Celtic was voted Goal of the Month for December. Sfiso Ramara, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Football news, where third-tier Wigan Athletic lived up to their billing as Manchester City's boogie team by beating the 10-man Premier League leaders 1-0 in a stunning FA Cup 5th-round upset yesterday. Now, City played the entire second half with 10 men after midfielder Fabian Delph was sent off in the 45th minute for a late challenge on Max Power.
In went Delph in a way that Anthony Taylor sees as dangerous. It's a yellow card, and
oh, he's now got his red card out, has he? Yeah, he's going to give him a red.
For the side that beat City twice recently in the FA Cup, there was always a hint of an upset in the air.
Could get in here. He does get in. Will Grigg, who's hardly had a kick, but that kick could go into the history books. Wigan lead Manchester City in the FA Cup. Wigan have not Manchester.
Will Grigg coolly slotted home the win in the 79th minute to trigger chants of Will Griggs on fire around the DW Stadium. The defeat ended City's hopes of an unprecedented quadruple of trophies this season. Wigan will now host another Premier League team, Southampton, in next month's quarterfinals, having now been beaten 3 top-flight sides in their fairy tale cup run. Now, in other news, our former Springbok rugby coach Peter de Villiers has fired some heavy parting shots at the South African Rugby Union as he moves to Zimbabwe to take up the national coaching position there. De Villiers says South African Rugby blacklisted him from coaching in South Africa after he left the Springboks in 2011. He also claims that Boland Rugby was offered 2 million rand from South African Rugby to not appoint him as coach.
De Villiers says when he became the preferred candidate for the Zimbabwe position, somebody from Zimbabwe Rugby phoned him with news that shocked him.
And they said to me, "Yeah, it's a problem now." SA Rugby called us and said that you are blacklisted, they can't appoint you. Well, I called somebody in South African Rugby who were the president then and asked him where does it come from, and he said he doesn't know about it. It was never discussed and those kind of things. But that's why we've got our government, we've got our laws in the country, and we get laws like blacklisted law, and then we get rugby and church and school, and everybody has their own laws of blacklisting people the way they want to do it. And when you find out about it, it's sometimes too late in your life, you know. But I'm so glad that I'm blacklisted. I'm really glad. It gave me that comfort that I'm not welcome in my country.
The South African Rugby Union responded by saying the allegations are completely untrue and instead congratulated De Villiers on his appointment as Zimbabwe coach. De Villiers went on to question the competence of the current SA Rugby management team.
If your boss played second team for Marties, and we all know that if you play second team for Marties, you're actually in the fifth team of the union. And you've been a guy who followed rugby, and Springbok is your pinnacle. Just to be there amongst them is already great for you. You know you will never earn a rugby jersey at any level because you're playing fifth team for. So now, let's do the second best thing. Let's get close to the team. Now, if I don't have that knowledge of the game, how can what gives me the right to tell my worker, my coach, you are doing wrong here, why don't you try that?
De Villiers feels he's not wanted in South African rugby and says one of the first things he'll do is to learn the Zimbabwean national anthem to repay them for the loyalty they showed. Harry Olivier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, Peter De Villiers is the only rugby coach in the history of rugby union to beat the All Blacks 3 times in one season. Something to chew on for his detractors. Now, South African tennis star Kevin Anderson has moved up to a career-best 9th place on the world rankings. On Sunday, Anderson beat American Sam Kerry to win the inaugural New York Open. Anderson had not won a title since 2015, and injuries had taken a toll since then. There was, however, no inclination of any injury problems in his final against Kerry. Although the American won the first set, Anderson, with his powerful serve, remained in the picture. Kerry's frustration levels continued to rise as the South African took control of the match. Anderson finally recorded a 4-6, 6-3, 7-6 victory in 2 hours and 13 minutes to make it his 4th career title. Moving on to the Winter Olympics, where Canadian ice dancers Tessa Virtue and Scott Moir claimed their 2nd Olympic gold with a new world record at the Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. Their winning score of 206.07 just eclipsed the previous best that was set moments before by silver medalist France. Elsewhere, another Canadian, Cassie Shaw, produced a dominant performance to win gold in the women's ski halfpipe final. She posted the best score in each of the first 2 runs of the halfpipe final, her best 96.80.
Virtue and Moya also won gold in Vancouver 8 years ago. They briefly retired after a silver in Sochi in 2014, but have dominated the event since coming out of retirement in 2016. They scored 122.40 in the free program, and thanks to their short skate point on Monday, just edged out France's Gabriela Papadakis and Jerome Cizeron.
An arena on its feet.
They left it on the ice, exactly where they wanted it to be.
American siblings Alex and Maya Shabutani claimed the bronze, only the 2nd brother and sister team to win an Olympic medal in ice dance. Meanwhile, the Canadian 2-man bobsleigh team say it's an honor to share the gold with Germany. Justin Kripps and Alexander Kopacz clocked exactly the same time as Germans Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margus in Tuesday's final. The teams posted a combined time of 3 minutes 16.86 seconds after 4 runs.
The time is the same. We've got 2 gold medals.
No way.
We have got a tie at the Olympic Sliding Centre. This is amazing.
I had started celebrating, and I saw Torsten and Friedrich jump into the track, and they were just raising their hands up and jumping up and down. And you know, at first I was just sort of assumed that they were happy for us that we'd won, and
very Canadian of us.
That they had got an Olympic silver medal, which is a massive achievement as well. And then we were just completely mobbed by people, Canadians, other countries, congratulating us, and Torsten was right in there, and he gave me a big hug, and he said, "We did it. We're Olympic champions. We tied." And I was like, "Wow, we tied!" Like what an incredible race.
It was almost comical. Just trying to understand the situation we've tied, because tying in bobsled, specifically within our field of the last 4 years, is quite a feat. I mean, 100th of a second is almost a 13th of an eye blink. It's very hard to imagine over, I think you put it best, 5 kilometers of track, more or less. Yeah, just a tremendous moment.
Might have been rock, paper, scissors to decide who got up first.
It's the first time in 20 years that the Olympic title is shared. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
And just like always, where there are medals, doping is not too far away either. Russian mixed doubles curling bronze medalist Alexander Krushelnitsky tested positive for meldonium, a drug which increases blood flow and enhances endurance. He won the bronze alongside his wife Anastasia Brizgalova. That's where we leave it with the sport. Up next, the weather forecast with Phil Hawkins.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's get you that weather update. And at the moment, we're expecting showers and thunder showers developing primarily through South Africa's northeastern regions. It's widespread showers there, and we're expecting heavy rainfall for today as well. So please be very, very aware of that, especially after we saw such flooding and devastation in some of the southeastern interior regions of South Africa as well. So taking a look at regions towards the east, it's wet weather continuing there. That extends north into Angola and parts of the DRC. Zambia expecting a bit of wet weather today as well. Tomorrow that intensifies to a 60% chance of showers through parts of Zambia there, through parts of Zimbabwe, and it grows into parts of Botswana for tomorrow as well. As you'll notice though, it's only a 60% chance of showers for South Africa's eastern regions there tomorrow, extending into a 30% chance of showers, and then of course clearing towards the west, where we see dominant high pressure systems still dominating that west coast of South Africa. So let's take a look now in a little bit more detail what this all means for you today. Temperatures range through the 20s along the coastlines of South Africa, through the mid-20s there. Temperatures in Mbombela at 25 degrees with a lot of rainfall and a lot of cloud cover today. Bloemfontein 31 and Pretoria at 28. Now, that cloud cover and rainfall continues north into Botswana and into the interior there of Zimbabwe as well. Around Bulawayo at 31 degrees and Harare at 26, both expecting showers and thunder showers. Beitbridge is at 34, expecting a lot of rainfall for today as well. And Maputo seeing up to about an 80% chance of showers there too. Antananarivo there in Madagascar peaks at 26 degrees Celsius for the major cities. We're expecting temperatures between about 24 and 31. And of course, back onto continental Africa, we see those rainfalls continuing, particularly around Lilongwe and Lusaka. This time extending into Dar es Salaam as well, so a bit of wet weather there. Still expecting a dry day in Mombasa and Kilimanjaro, so the wet weather extending primarily towards the west. Now in the west, we're going to see a lot of wet weather, but we're also going to see some warm temperatures, which means high humidity, 27 to 34 degree maximums for our represented cities there. The northern hemisphere, well, this is where we see the low pressure systems of winter passing by, and those are bringing in showers towards that northern coastline, cooler conditions as well. We're also seeing some rainfall for today along that southern coastline of West Africa, progressing on through the evening and then into tomorrow, seeing some of those showers extending north as well. Now, of course, that low pressure system is going to move from west to east, and that's going to bring in some cool conditions. So let's take a look at some of those. First of all, we'll start off around the a little bit further south, around the equator, just north of the equator, and we'll see temperatures well into the 20s and into the 30s even. But now we move further north, we start seeing cooler temperatures. We start seeing temperatures around the mid-20s in Cairo and into the teens around Tehran. Now, of course, we move further west, and this is where we see those cool conditions coming in as a result of that low pressure and the rainfall. 14 in Tunis, 18 in Tripoli, and 17 in Benghazi. This is where we'll leave your weather for now. Stay with us here on the SABC.
Did you know the big hole digging started in 1871 and ended on the 14th August 1914? The hole produced 2,722 kgs of diamonds. However, one diamond as huge as 490 carat of stone found in the open prior 1868 gave them the interest to dig. Extracted from 22.5 million tons of soil. Today, the hole sits at a breathtaking 214 meters deep. Kimberley Big Hole attracts tourists from all over the world, taking a vintage tram past the city, then cycling around the Big Hole.
The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa.
Step up your efforts to deal with corruption.
The President Cyril Ramaphosa will have his work cut out for him this afternoon when he replies to these and other tough questions posed during the SONA debate. Police are expected to take the stand as the Morane Commission resumes this morning. The funeral service of Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai is currently underway at his home village of Buhera.
Speaking of Zimbabwe, the new Zimbabwe national rugby coach Peter de Villiers, the last South African coach to win the Tri-Nations, fires off the serious allegation that SARU actively blacklisted him for years.
And they said to me, yeah, it's a problem now. SA Rugby called us and said that you are blacklisted, they can't appoint you.
Hello and welcome to the last hour of Newsroom. If you have just tuned in, I'm Shante Yankees coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. A lot coming up between now and 12 p.m, as well as your expectations from the President's SONA reply and views and news from the continent. Of course, I'm not alone. Kendall Makmase is standing by with all our sporting highlights. Very good morning to you, Kendall. You good?
Good morning to you, Shante. You know what? Looking forward to all the action tonight in the UEFA Champions League.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. As well as looking forward to a little bit of a prayer that we all need for the Proteas in the T20 battle against India. All this and more. Then later, stay close.
In your top story at 11 o'clock, President Cyril Ramaphosa will today reply to the debate on his maiden State of the Nation address. The National Assembly sat for 10 hours yesterday as parliamentarians debated the president's speech.
It was a long sitting for MPs. This debate usually takes place over 2 days. But of course, due to all the political developments unfolding in the country, the debate was set down for 1 day only. This was to accommodate the program of Parliament for this week.
It is our considered view that the President needs to expedite his meeting with the leaders of all spheres of government, managers and premiers, to commit them to the new dawn he referred to on his address.
When it comes to corruption, you came up gun blazing on Friday. But proof of the pudding is in the eating. As the PAC, we wonder if you will be able to deal with corruption properly.
Hope and change must be measured on how the material conditions of the working poor has changed for the better.
Step up your efforts to deal with corruption. Our people want to see that perpetrators of crime who plundered the state coffers are arrested and prosecuted in the relevant foreign courts. Our law enforcement agencies should interact with Interpol and their counterparts in other jurisdictions to ensure that all fugitives with relation to state capture are apprehended and brought to book.
The Gupta criminal syndicate has shifted billions of rands out of South Africa. It's a fact. SARS is failing to collect revenue in the manner in which is expected. A shortfall of 50 billion rands, as was announced here. The National Prosecutions Authority is dysfunctional. It works according to who is in political office. They only make arrests now that Jacob Zuma is no more.
We must learn the lessons of how Zuma was able to capture the state, subjugate our parliament, and tame our institutions. One man could never wreak such devastation on his own. So while you set to work, Mr. President, on fixing the executive, we as parliament must introspect very honestly and very carefully about how we fix our parliament and address its failings over the last 8 years to effect oversight.
I was intrigued today to note how antiseptic the response to your call for deep debate has been. And I envy you not in trying to develop a substantial response to some of what has been said.
Throughout the debates, President Cyril Ramaphosa was seen taking notes and listening intently. He will respond to political parties on Tuesday afternoon. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Earlier this morning, an enthusiastic group of supporters joined President Cyril Ramaphosa on a walk from Gugulethu to Athlone in Cape Town to promote a healthy lifestyle. Last week, the President and former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel took a walk to the Sea Point Promenade. Ramaphosa says the walk gives him a chance to interact with ordinary South Africans.
This gives me an opportunity to interact with our people, and I've been walking on the Sea Point side, the promenade, and I've been meeting a lot of interesting people, shaking hands and taking selfies, and sometimes I ask them, can I take a selfie with you? So this is a fantastic moment, and I want to thank you for being part of this, because this is how we continue building our nation, being healthy people, being fit, being also fit for purpose, to be able to do things. And one of the great things that's been happening since the SONA speech, many people that I've been meeting have been saying, President, send me to me now. And that has been the rallying cry of many people as I've been meeting them. So it's no longer just me asking to be sent, it's many people that I meet saying, send me as well. So thank you, but lastly, I hope this is a new beginning for you as well.
Yes.
That many of you have been telling me that you are going to start walking.
Yes.
You are going to start walking clubs. Some of the people here have running clubs, and I hope the walking clubs will start so that we all get fit and become fit South Africans. And this is, for me, what young people call hashtag Mkaba must fall. Hashtag the tummy must fall. So I want my tummy to fall, so I'm going to continue walking.
Well, the Gupta lawyers are asking the Hawks to give them documents linking their clients to the Estina dairy farm project. One of the brothers, Atul, filed court papers challenging a preservation order to freeze 10 million rand in his bank account, which is allegedly linked to the scandal. Well, this as the Hawks search for his brother AJ, who has been declared a fugitive from justice.
Well, in court papers, Atul Gupta rubbished his claims that he received 10 million rand from Estina. Well, he says there's no evidence to suggest so, and that the National Director of Public Prosecutions misled the court. Well, he's now asked the High Court in Bloemfontein to set aside the preservation order. For the first time, it's also become clear in these papers that Atul Gupta is not in the country.
As the NPA, we are defending the matter. Our asset forfeiture lawyers are currently working on our papers. We will file on the 21st, and the matter will be heard on the 1st of March in the High Court in Bloemfontein.
Well, the Hawks are on record saying they are looking for Atul and RJ Gupta, and SABC News understands that RJ has procured the services of new lawyers, but his whereabouts are not known. Well, he was declared a fugitive after he failed to hand himself over to the Hawks, and there are also reports that suggest he was spotted in India. While keen for the Guptas to be nabbed, private citizens have offered rewards, which some security experts say is dangerous.
There's nothing wrong with offering rewards for information that could lead to the arrests of suspects. But offering money for the arrests of suspects directly is very, very dangerous for a number of reasons. Secondly, when someone is arrested and there is resistance to the arrest, and the arrestee then uses force to carry out the arrest, that may lead to further problems. And if you do not act within the boundaries of what the Criminal Procedure Act provides for, it will become an unlawful arrest, so it will undermine the purpose of all of this, and arresting suspects.
Well, SABC News also understands that RJ's lawyers are also demanding that the Hawks hand over all documentation linking their client to the Estina corruption. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the sole director of Estina, Kamal Vastram, has been released on a 100,000 rand bail. He's one of the 8 people that have been accused of looting more than 22 million rand from the Frida Dairy Farm project. Well, 7 co-accused were released on bail by the Bloemfontein Regional Court last week.
Vastram appeared in a heavily guarded courtroom. Last Thursday, his residential address could not be confirmed. The state opposed bail, stating inconsistencies in his arguments.
The investigating officer had not yet verified his residential address, so we had to go and verify it. He verified, even though the state had some concerns relating to that address because he is renting where he's staying at the moment. And the other issue was that the state was of the view that he's not playing open cards because he is claiming that he's earning 15,000 rand a month and he's paying more than 14,000 rand for rent.
Vastram's bail conditions include handing in his travel documents, reporting to the Midrand police station twice a week, and not to travel outside Gauteng borders without permission from authorities. He will appear in court alongside the 7 other accused on the 17th of August. Free State Agriculture senior officials Peter Tabete and Dr. Takisi Masiteng and the department's former CEO Sipati Dlamini were released on bail of 10,000 rand each. Bail was set at 200,000 rand each for Oak Bay former CEO Nazim Hoa, its acting CEO Ronika Raghavan, Gupta nephew Varun Gupta, and Ashu Chawla of Sahara Computers. Bale Samuedi, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
Just to make note that that figure there is not in fact 22 million but 220 million with regards to the looting on the Estina Dairy Farm project. Moving on, the Morane Commission investigating political killings in KZN is now currently underway. Let's cross live.
When we were trying to resolve this problem of Cliplands Hostel, there was a five-a-side that was established which was trying to resolve the problem between the 2 fighting factions. Each group was represented by 5 people. And the Department of Community Safety and Liaison was facilitating those discussions, because we wanted to get to the bottom to find exactly as to what is the cause of the problem, so that we'll be able to find a solution to that problem. It will also assist us as police, that when we police, we'll be knowing exactly how to move around to police that particular problem, because it was becoming a problem. So what was detected that during April 2014, there was a feud that ensued between the block chairperson for Block 52 and his secretary. regarding the allocation of bed spaces in the same block. The secretary of Block 52, he discovered that the legal residents in Block 52, there were legal residents in Block 52 that were evicted from their bed spaces by the block chairperson, and their bed spaces were sold to females for 900 rand and 1,500. Now, the secretary then for Block 52, he then exposed the action of the block chairperson to the residents. The block secretary wrote a letter to the block chairman committee. And he read that letter openly to the other residents. And then he sent the letter requesting the intervention of the block chairman's committee. The block secretary alleged that he saw the block chairman for Block 52. He was next to Block 57 with a group of people singing, firing random shots, and saying they want secretary, referring to him. And then the block chairman summoned the block secretary for Block 52 to his room. He alleged that when he arrived at the block chairman's room, the block chairman lifted the bed, the mattress on the bed, and he showed him the firearm that was under the bed, meaning threatening him now. That's what is indicated. And later, the block secretary was told that the block chairman's committee resolved not to intervene onto Block 52's issue, saying that if there should be people that must be shot and killed, let it be, because they were just rumbled. That was the message which he got from the block chairman committee. Chair, again, so that for the purpose of follow-up, I indicated earlier on to say the controlling point for the block chairman was at our block, because that's where the chair of chairs was. That's where also the meeting I indicated earlier on that were being held. So which means that was a message that came back to the secretary for Block 52 from. And then the block secretary alleged that he was summoned to a kangaroo court at our block and questioned as to why he was siding with residents, yet he was a block secretary. And he was summoned on several occasions, then he decided not to go because he could realize that his life could be in danger. He decided not to go at a later stage. And then the other residents then started intervening to assist the block secretary in evicting the chairperson in Block 52. The reason why some members of this assisted the secretary of Block 52 is because they themselves alleged that they were also victims of eviction in their own rooms by the block chairman. One cited that he was evicted in Block P, which was Mr. Hlophe himself, the one who was leading the other group, the second group. He indicated that he was evicted from his room in Block 52 by the block chairman. And his girlfriend was in Block 52. The block chairman committee also evicted her. And that his girlfriend, I must indicate here, because I'm sure it has been maybe raised to this commission, I'm not sure, was a sister of a police member who was also a resident in Cleveland's hostel. Now, the other residents were fed up with the chairman's action of evicting residents from their bed spaces and also selling their bed spaces. Then the chairperson for Block 52 was then evicted from Block 52, and he moved over to Block R. His bed space, the block chairperson's bed space was given to the females that he sold the beds for the evicted people. And all the people that were evicted from their bed spaces were reinstated into their bed spaces. I've already indicated that the chairperson moved to Block R, which is Mtembu's, that's where Mtembu group is situated. And the Hlope and the block secretary, then they became very popular. They became very popular in Clifton's hostel due to their bravery for exposing the corruption and the ousting of the chairman from Block 52, because that was exposing the corruption of the block chairman to say they've been ousting and selling the bed spaces for the people, but this one was brave enough to expose them. Now, after ousting this person, after ousting the chairman for Block 52, the numerical, that is numerical, I'm going to refer it as numerical, which is a Matala Stairs, became a stronghold for Hlope's group. So it means all the people in numerical blocks, which is all stairs, which they go with Hlope's group. And the alphabetical blocks, it became a stronghold from Mtembu's group. The alphabetical blocks is on the southern side of the Clifton's hostel. Now, I want to move over to the formation of the block chairperson's opposition group. To say, after the eviction of the Block 52 chair in May 2015, a second group calling itself Block Committee or Hlope Group emerged at the Clifton's hostel. And this group is commonly known as Hlope Group or Matala Stairs Group. Now, Hlope's group, they claimed that they wanted the people to be registered on their bed spaces so that they can rent in order for the development to take place at the hostel. The Hlope's group, they alleged that they were opposed to the block chairman's committee, alleging that the block chairman committee was ousting residents from their bed spaces and selling their bed spaces. And the Hlope's group also alleged that the block chairman's committee was forcefully giving women men of their choice in the event of death of their loved ones. They alleged that the block chairman's committee was forcing males or females to reside together with their girlfriends or boyfriends once it has been discovered that they were lovers and their bed spaces were sold. If I were to pause here, what was said, what was coming out clear from the residents was that once you are found that you are a lover with this particular female, you will be forced to go and stay together, and your bed space will be sold. They alleged that the block chairman was also assaulting hostel residents with a chambok if you hold a different view with their view. That was happening in the Kangaroo Court. And they alleged that the block chairman and their supporters on blocks that fall under the control of Hlope's group were allegedly ousted from their bed spaces. Because as much as the Hlope group, they were saying they were opposed to what the block chairperson they were doing, they ended up doing exactly the same thing too as well. They were evicting people from their bed spaces too. After the formation of this second rival group of the block chairman, then the killings, through shooting started to escalate at Cleveland's hostel and surrounding areas. It never ended only within the hostel, but it also extended to the surrounding areas. And it became clear that both groups, they were attacking each other in the guerrilla-style warfare, because these things are only happening mostly at night. Now, the Lopez group also staged a march. There were 2 marches, but I was able to, just to secure, just to get one memorandum, which is the ones written to the station commander chair. Because I did not sum it up, but I'll just sum it up now. Mr. Commissioner, I'm not going to go to the top part that is referring to the station commander. The top part that is referring to the station commander was only complaining about the investigators that were there, the investigation team that I mentioned earlier on that I established to investigate the cases. Their concern was that since the task team came in, they've never arrested anyone, which was not the case. The reason for that was because 2 of the ringleaders, which was Hlophe and Ndlovu, they were arrested by the very same team. Then they started saying this team, they don't want it here because they already touched their fingers on them. But the point I wanted to make, I wanted to refer to the second part of it, which was then directed to the leaders of the Mthembu group. There's a name, the first name that is there, where they indicated that they demanded the municipality to take away these people at the hostel. They said, once these people are gone, there's going to be peace. That was Lopez group now saying, there's going to be peace once these people from Mthembu group are gone. They mentioned the name of Bongani. The memorandum cites Bongani Mthembu. Bongani Mthembu was the chair of chairs. He was the chairperson of the block chairman's committee. They mentioned William Mthembu. They mentioned Bongile Nhlambelo Nsepo, Thokozani Manci, Themba Pina.
Could those names please be spelled for the record, and other names which have been mentioned, like Hlophe, etc.?
For the records, Hlophe will be spelled as capital H-L-O-P-H-E. Emalandeni will be E capital M-A-L-A-N-D-E-N-I. Ndlovu will be capital N-D-L-O-V-U. Madala Stairs will be M-A-D-A-L-A-S-T-E-Z-I. Bongile will be capital B-O-N-G-I-L-E. Nhlambelo will be capital H-L-A-M-B-E-L-O. Nsempo will be capital N-S-E-M-P-O. Thokozani will be capital T-H-O-K-O-Z-A-N-I. Manci will be capital M-A-N-G-C-I. Themba will be capital T-H-E-M-B-A. Pina will be capital P-I-N-A. Bongani Mthembu, I've spelled the name Bongani and it will be spelled as the same together with Mthembu. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Please proceed, General.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, it is sad to say, almost all these people, there's names that are here, they're all late.
What document is that?
No, the people's name that were appearing on this memorandum that were listed, yeah.
Yes.
They're all late.
But CC6. Oh, they've all died.
They were all murdered. but not necessarily within Cleveland's hostel. It was all over, because 2 was under Mbilo, 1 was under, 2 were under Montclair policing area, 1 was under Mbilo when he was going to work, and the other one was within the Cleveland's hostel.
Yes. I suppose at some stage you will lead evidence about the investigations into the murders.
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you.
General Chiliza, if I may ask you to speak close to the mic.
Thank you. My apology for that one. Chair, I want to now move to the allegation of a police member's involvement in the Cleveland hostel violence. I made mention earlier on that there was a police member who was residing at the hostel. That was in Tembo's group. They alleged that there was a member of the SAPS who was residing at Cleveland's hostel, whose sister was a girlfriend for a member of Lopez's group. And in Tembo's group, they alleged that the same police member was always seen moving with a certain member of Lopez's group. And also Tembo's group alleged that the same SAPS member was siding with Lopez's group. There were also allegations by Mtembo's group that the same SAPS member was involved in the violence that was prevailing in the Cleveland's hostel. However, at that time, I want to emphasize, Chair, however, at that time, there was no evidence that was received or provided that could link the police member to any criminal activities that were occurring at Cleveland's hostel.
And at that time, you are referring to what period in particular?
When these allegations were made, they were made, I move away from Umlas from 2015, that was before 2015.
So the allegations were made, you say, before 2015?
That was 2014, 2015, same allegations were made.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I'm moving to the block chairman structure and its illegality. I mentioned earlier on that the Cleveland's hostel had a structure for block chairman committee with its chairperson, and each block had a block chairman and a secretary.
I'm sorry. Before you proceed, just to tie these things together, you say during the period 2014 to 2015, there was no evidence to link this particular policeman to the allegations of murder. Are we talking about the policeman who was subsequently arrested?
Chair, could I reserve maybe answer to that one for now?
Well, I think it is public knowledge that a particular policeman was arrested and he's facing a criminal trial at the moment. I think that's public knowledge. Now my question is, those allegations in 2014 and 2015, were they allegations concerning the particular policeman who has been arrested and who is facing criminal charges?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
It was on that basis when I said, at that time.
Yes, I just wanted to tie this together so that we are talking about the same person.
Chairperson, I wanted to go back to the block chairperson structure. and its legality. I mentioned earlier on that there was a structure for block chairman which had its own chairperson, and there was a block chairman and a secretary on each and every block, and they had their own committee, of which the late Mr. Bongani Mthembu, he was the chair of chairs. And they were commonly known as Mthembu's group or R block. And their meetings were being held in a corrugated iron garage which was situated on R block premises. It is alleged that that same garage that is situated on the premises of R block, where the block chairman committee meetings were being held, was being also used as a kangaroo court for trialing whoever.
News just coming out there of the Murane Commission and the police testifying this morning. Zimbabweans to bid farewell to opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai. AU Commission Chairperson Dr. Musa Faki Mahamat urges Zimbabwe's former President Robert Mugabe to help turn the country to civilian rule. 70 people die as a rubbish dump collapses on them in the Mozambique capital of Maputo. Leading the Zimbabwean minister, who was part of a breakaway faction from ZANU-PF, are calling for what they refer to as a fact-finding mission into the change of government. The National Patriotic Front, which consists of former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe's ministers, say it has sent a petition to the SABC and the African Union asking it to intervene and return the country to civil rule. This following what it calls the bloody coup of November 15th. A letter from the Department of International Relations to NPF, seen by SABC News, says that the matter was forwarded from the presidency on the 15th of February. Well, the new formation started by former ZANU-PF members who were forced out of resignation of Mugabe, accuses the AU and the SADC of failing to condemn an unconstitutional military takeover. In an exclusive interview with SABC News last month, of course, former Minister of Communications Jonathan alleged that Mnangagwa's government was ill-treating Mugabe and that a civil war is looming. Well, AU Commission Chairperson Dr. Musa Faki Mahamat, who is in Zimbabwe, has met former President Robert Mugabe and his wife Grace in Harare. In its petition to the AU, NPF asked the organization to launch a full-scale fact-finding mission, saying because Mugabe was forced to resign, the constitution was violated when the military was deployed without the order of the commander-in-chief, the then President Mugabe. Well, it also alleges that military personnel were killed and tortured and that the charges some of them are facing are trumped up. Staying with the news from Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai will be buried in his home village of Beheaded this morning. Thousands of people gathered at Harare's Freedom Square yesterday for a final memorial service.
You, my friends, a rare united front. For weeks, Morgan Tsvangirai's 3 lieutenants and their supporters have been at each other's throats. But for his memorial service, they are standing side by side.
The party does not belong to Chamisa or Kupe or Mudzuri, Moyo or Kumichi. The party does not belong to anyone in the leadership. The party belongs to the people.
Opposition tributes continued across the Limpopo.
Ndate Morgan Tsvangirai. We mourn his passing, and I personally will miss him dearly. He offered wise counsel and support to me, and I regret, with all that happened last week, I was not able to speak to him one last time. Morgan was beaten nearly to death many times for his political activism, and he never once wavered for his commitment to fight.
We may not have agreed with the politics of Morgan Tsvangirai, but we fully admit
that indeed he won the elections and the regime did not allow him to become the leader of the people of Zimbabwe. We want to say to Morgan Tsvangirai, that will never happen in South Africa. Here we will not allow nonsensical things like those that happened to you in Zimbabwe to happen.
Tsvangirai's body has been flown to Buhera, where the funeral will start at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Ntakwana Ngatani, SABC News.
At least 17 people died and several others have been injured in Mozambique's capital on Monday when a 15-meter pile of garbage collapsed due to heavy rain, burying 7 houses. The collapse happened in the impoverished Hulene neighborhood, which is around 10 kilometers from the center of Maputo. Well, officials say the houses were built illegally and authorities had previously asked the residents to leave. For now, though, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, all your sporting highlights with Kendall Makamate.
Welcome back. Time for the sports. My name is Kendall Makamate. We'll start with a story about how the knockout stage of the UEFA Champions League continues this evening. Chelsea will be at home against Barcelona, while Besiktas are travelling to Germany to face the mighty Bayern Munich. Before those matches and on the domestic front, Platinum Stars, who are at the foot of the Absolute Premiership log, will host SuperSport United in Phuket.
Platinum Stars are more like shooting stars in the Absa Premiership this season. The Kwena are rooted to the bottom of the table. They have just 16 points from 20 matches and are 5 points behind Ajax Cape Town in 15th place. But the Roger Disa-led troops will face another inconsistent side this evening. SuperSport United have played 20 matches and are currently 12th on the log. They are keen to move up the table and claim a place in the top 8. The Platinum Stars SuperSport United match kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Meanwhile, the UEFA Champions League match between Chelsea and Barcelona in London will be a show of 2 magicians. Chelsea's Belgian star, Eden Hazard, aspires to be at the level of Lionel Messi. The two previously played against each other at international level. Judged on their domestic form, Chelsea will go into this match as underdogs, while Barca have not lost in La Liga this season.
We have to know that during the game we must be prepared to suffer, but at the same time we must have the idea that in every moment we can go straight to try to score.
Bueno, ellos tienen una forma de jugar muy marcada.
Chelsea have their own way of playing. Many teams in the Premier League have played against them, and that has conditioned Chelsea to how they play and how they've changed the way they play. We undoubtedly have to consider this. The mechanics are different.
Más que nada porque los mecanismos son diferentes.
Besiktas are ready to face German champions Bayern Munich in their Champions League round of 16 first leg match. On Monday, Chilean midfielder Gary Medel said as a team they will not be faced by the threat posed by the German side. It is the first time Besiktas managed to qualify for round of 16 in the Champions League.
We played a good group stage and finished first. Now we play one of the great opponents. We are well prepared and we hope to survive this round.
Bayern are still haunted by their 3-0 defeat at the hands of Paris Saint-Germain in their very first match of their Champions League campaign in September. The German outfit eventually finished runners-up in Group B behind the French champions.
There's still so much to improve if we want to win the Champions League, so tomorrow can be the next step, but of course if we play again like it in that game, it will be hard for us to win anything.
This evening's UEFA Champions League matches will kick off at 9:45. Mtutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now, South African women's football is yet to reach its full potential, but the country's talent has not gone unnoticed beyond the borders. Two Banyana players have recently secured deals with an American side, Houston Dash. The signings could symbolize progress in women's football as the country prepares itself for a professional league, which is expected to kick off in 2019.
Muhlakeng is a township located west of Johannesburg. It's famously known for producing sporting icons such as soccer players Patrick Esentsweleng, Donald Kuse, Banks Tlodi, Opa Manyesa and boxer Tera Matebula. Thembi Kgatlana is another talent unearthed here in the township. She is the most recent South African player to sign for Houston Dash. Kgatlana follows in the footsteps of Banyana captain Janine van Wyk and compatriot Linda Motlhalo. The 23-year-old's rise to the top happened remarkably quickly. She was first introduced to the national senior team under coach Vera Pauw in 2014. That is why she attributes her achievements to the Dutch coach. Pauw is the football manager at Houston Dash, and she has now secured Kgatlana's services for the American side.
I've worked with Vera Pauw in Banyana. She was a good coach. She improved my game a lot from playing 10 minutes to now being able to cope playing the whole 90 minutes and also being part of a team player. I think she had an impact on my performance as well.
Kgatlana has been one of the key players for the national team since 2016. She has improved year on year and 2017 stood out for her.
2017 was a good year for me, going to the World Student Games in Taipei, helping the team finish 4th, which is a record that was done also previous years with the other team. And going into COSAFA, even though Banyana didn't play a lot, we managed to scoop the tournament. I managed to make 5 assists for the team and also scoop 4 goals for myself. And at the end, I got player of the tournament for COSAFA.
30 kilometers away from Kgatlana's hometown of Muhlakeng hails another shining star from the Badirile township, also on the West Rand. Linda Motlhalo signed her contract with Houston Dash last month. She will join her new team together with Kgatlana in March.
Most importantly, Lithout. Yeah. So it's much better when
there are similarities between these two players. Both have been part of junior national teams before graduating to Banyana. Motlhalo recently guided the national under-20 team, Basetsana, to the final stages of their World Cup qualifier.
I think the journey of me being the captain of under-20, going to the Olympics, and yeah, I think it's one of the things that go Houston Dash, I would say.
Although it's every young footballer's dream to play overseas, it was a difficult decision to make for both these players.
I told my parents about it and they were so excited, but never worried more about school, what's going to happen, is it a great move or not. So and we came to the end, I'm going to Houston Dash.
I told them that a deal like this doesn't often happen, and it's only now 3 South Africans playing in a professional league. I mean, there's a lot of players in South Africa, hoping to play in a professional league. So if I let go of this deal, I might never get it again.
They were offered a life-changing opportunity. They accepted, a proud moment for the country, but more especially for those close to them.
It's in terms of it's a camp. As got change Africa,
football it's the same guy, the way I think of. Yeah.
And here she is. She got us a contract, so Masarame will be playing abroad. So we will be praying re rapela ka thata gore modimo a nne le Linda so that abe successfully a deliver on what she wants to become go Houston Dash.
Despite the lack of a professional league in South Africa, these players managed to become professionals elsewhere. They have now become an inspiration to other women footballers in the country, and they have an opportunity to showcase the country's talent and perhaps open doors for others with the same dreams. Lebhantube, SABC News on the West Rand.
Now, from one group of South Africans that are making South African proud to another one, South African tennis star Kevin Anderson has moved up to a career-best 9th place in the world rankings. On Sunday, Anderson beat American Sam Kerry to win the inaugural New York Open. Anderson had not won a title since 2015, and injuries had taken their toll since then. There was, however, no inkling of any injury problems in his final against Kerry. Although the American won the first set, Anderson and his powerful serve remained in the picture. Kerry's frustration levels continued to rise as the South African took control of the match. Anderson finally recorded a 4-6, 6-3, 7-6 victory in 2 hours and 13 minutes. It was his 4th career title. And that's where we're going to leave it with the sport, Shante.
Yes, it's been a good Tuesday. Thank you very much for joining us here on SABC Newsroom. We do it every single weekday, Monday to Friday between 9 and 12 p.m. For myself, Shante Yankees.
And me, Kendall Makhamati.
Bye-bye.
Ligamos. Ready? Yeah.